Welcome to the Haunting Chronicles. Tonight, you're invited to step into the shadows and listen to a story that will chill you to the bone. Make sure you're somewhere safe. Once the darkness falls, you never know what might crawl out from beneath your skin. Turn down the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself for another terrifying tale. I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always a monster. In fact, I used to be normal, just like you. I worked at the local community college library, restocking books and helping students find whatever text they were looking for, cataloging knowledge for others. I was quiet, didn't talk much, preferring the company of books over people. My life was simple. I didn't date, didn't travel much, and had few close friends. I was, in essence, invisible. I spent every weekend with my mother. She would come to pick me up from the library, ready for a weekend of girl talk and baked goods. Outside our sweet little get-togethers, books and movies were all I needed in life. And Paragon. Ah, Paragon. A fitting name for such a man. Paragon was what people aspired to be. Bold, strong, and courageous. A true hero. A superhero that fought crime and inspired millions. He kept the city safe, helped those in need, and acted as a light in the dark for those who had lost their way. I had to admit, I was a huge fan. He had done so much for everyone, and saved countless lives. Had I been more than just a librarian, I would have helped him in a heartbeat. He inspired me, gave me a reason to believe in the good of all people. Oh, how naive I was. It was during a fight with his arch-nemesis, Dr. Lucien Vane, that I came to be what I am today. One night, on a walk back from work, I noticed the police cars outside Vane Incorporated. Encircling the massive research facility, the police directed people away from it, as the sound of destruction could be heard from within. I listened intently to a nearby police officer's radio as the situation became known. Dr. Lucien Vane had once again broken out of prison and built a machine that was threatening the city and all those within it. Paragon had intercepted him and was currently fighting him inside the facility. The objective now was to secure and clear the area of civilians before something catastrophic happened. My heart hammered at the sounds of violence within. Worry over the fate of my hero flooded my body, and when an altercation broke out between police and a Vane Inc. employee, I took my chance and jumped the police line. Sneaking in through an unsecured window, I found myself in the midst of the chaos within. Paragon was fighting Lucien Vane, the latter in a large mechanical suit he had constructed himself, monologuing about how he would bring about the future of humanity. The machine threatening the city was aglow with ethereal bubbles of what appeared to be far-off places, opening and closing quickly in its center, like a slideshow of alternate dimensions set to an insane speed. I hid behind a large shelf, watching the fight and looking for a way to help my hero. Gravity welled from the machine and pulled objects into its center, including the shelf I was hiding behind. I gripped the shelf with all my strength, letting out a terrified scream. Paragon shoved Lucien away and pushed the shelf behind a pillar, saving me. But Lucien took full advantage of the situation, grabbing Paragon by the throat and holding him up in the air, choking him. I had to act. Paragon had saved me, and I would return the favor. Bracing against the pillar, I used my legs to push against the shelf, freeing it enough to fly into the air and smash into the back of Lucien Vane. He dropped Paragon and turned to me, taking a few quick steps and ramming the sharp arm blade of his suit clean through my abdomen. Blood poured down my dress as I was lifted into the air before Paragon interrupted, grabbing Lucian from behind and pulling him away. I flew off his arm blade into a tall glass vial, which promptly shattered upon impact, covering me in its contents. Paragon and Lucien flew headlong into the center of the machine, disappearing from our reality and causing it to shut down with an electric pop. Bleeding, I felt the viscous fluid burn my every pore as it slowly dribbled down my body and into my large, open wound. The last thing I remember of that night was the smell of blood and chemicals before passing out. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the hospital several weeks later. Amazingly, I had healed incredibly quickly in my comatose state. After running a few more tests, the doctors determined I was perfectly healthy and detected no anomalies. Mystified by my swift recovery from an otherwise fatal wound, I was discharged soon after. My abdomen was unmarred, as if the wound never existed at all. I tried to return to my normal life, to go back to the way things were, but it was impossible. Petty criminals, emboldened by Paragon's absence, began to run amok in the once peaceful city. Crime rose steadily, and people, mourning the loss of Paragon, cried out for a savior. That was when I began to notice the changes. It was subtle at first, a new mark on my skin here, a strange bump there. The more I studied the changes, the more I realized I could influence and outright control them. I could manipulate my body any way I wanted, change it into any form I desired, with full and total control over all of my biological functions. It didn't stop there, though. I learned I could control the functions of any organic matter I touched, and even influence it from a distance. It began with my cat, who had a limp his whole life, but when I touched him and willed it away, it never bothered him again. I began experimenting, reshaping my body to my preference, building muscle, moving fat, growing bone, generating sinew. A true shapeshifter, I could become anyone, no, anything I wanted. So I became a hero, or at least I tried to be. I helped people, answered their calls for help, brought criminals to justice. I always made sure to change into a new form. When I did so, no one could recognize me. Following the police scanner and using the various animals around me to see across the city, I could pinpoint the exact place where trouble was. I was slowly learning the limits of my abilities, settling into a pace I was comfortable with. Then it happened, the end of what could have been. It was a little over a week into my newfound path in life when I came across a warehouse on fire. I could detect a life form in there, a rapidly beating heart and lungs choking for air. I didn't hesitate. Swinging in through a broken window, I quickly picked up the man I found, gasping for breath, and deposited him safely away from the burning inferno. He gruffly thanked me and ran away before emergency services could arrive. The other people were too late to be saved. It's funny, I think if I had stopped to consider his odd reaction and the circumstances, I really should have realized what had actually transpired there. But I was blinded by my desire to help, to be a hero. I was so blind. A few days later, as I stood outside the library, waiting to be picked up, I got the call. I fell to my knees as the news was broken to me by the sympathetic voice of a police officer. My mother's body had been found in a dumpster. She had been violated, robbed, and killed. I wept. cried until my throat stung, and tears could fall no more. The loss and grief were too much. The funeral was later that week, after the coroner released her. She was buried next to my dad. When I was brought in to identify her body, I gave the side of her face a loving stroke. That's when a latent ability of mine made itself known, and I picked up her memories. At that moment, I replayed her life story, all the moments we spent together, and all the love she had for me. But more importantly, I saw the face of the man that had violated and killed her in cold blood. It was him, the man I had saved from the warehouse fire. I had saved him for last. I took my time with him, savored every pitiful whine as my fingers dug into his flesh, slithering like snakes beneath his skin, curling around his limbs until bones cracked with pressure. I weaved them over and between his muscles until I reached his nerves. There, I plucked the strings of a filthy lyre, playing my song of pain as he wailed in agony. I kept playing, shredding them apart slowly and repairing them just to do it all over again. Still, it wasn't enough. His screams filled the air down in that dark, desolate basement as I tore him open, keeping him alive as I pulled his organs out one by one. I violated him like he violated my mother. I smiled with glee, watching him writhe like the pitiful worm he really was. Watched as he felt the pain I felt in my soul inflicted across every inch of his body. And when he was nothing but a head, eyes rolling to the back of his skull as he begged for death, I finally let him go. But not before slowly crushing it to paste between my palms. My mother was avenged. And then it happened. I stood among the blood-soaked remains of the violent criminals around me, the sudden silence of the night calming my heart. My mind began to ease until I felt them rush in, the memories of the criminals I had slain. Dozens of lives flashed before my eyes, lives that turned for the worse and chose the path of crime. I saw all the people they killed, all the lives they ruined. I saw the children left without parents, only to then be sold off to the highest bidder. I saw the people they had raped, forever scarred by the event. I saw the people they killed, the families that would have one less loved one in their lives. And I saw my mother, how he had violated her, the vile feeling of power and dominance it gave him, the sickening pleasure. I saw how little he felt for her when he killed her. No remorse for his actions, like he was just tossing away a piece of trash into a bin. I saw and felt everything. For a long time, I just lay there, clutching my head as tears fell from my eyes and my skull felt close to bursting. I screamed and screamed as my mind replayed every traumatic event again and again. Paragon was wrong. These people didn't deserve the comfort of cuffs on their wrists, of life in prison. No, they deserved far, far worse. Then I heard the sirens. Of course, it was only a matter of time. I knew what I had done, the mess I had made. I stumbled to my feet, grew wings, and flew away. The massacre made headlines for weeks afterward. A whole gang nearly wiped out in one night. What happened that night was not the work of a noble hero or a well-meaning good Samaritan, the press and police announced. No, it was the work of a violent, feral animal, of a monster. Yet I know better, because I can still hear them. All of them. The real monsters, an archive of anarchy. They remain here in my head, crying out for vengeance, spitting curses at me. They call for my death, for their retribution. It is all I can do to tune them out. I can't go back. I can never go back. To the library, to my old life. I gave my cat to a trusted friend and fled, selling my belongings and ending the contract with my landlord. I can never have a normal life again, not with what I know, not when I know what kind of monsters exist out there. And that's what I will be to them. A monster, the one that hides in their closets, under their beds, in the dark recesses of their minds, even under their very skin. I will hunt them down and murder them, all of them. I will show them what a monster really is. Once, when the police had found the body of a petty thief whose skin I made crawl off of him, the paper called for my arrest and execution, claiming I was a danger to the public. A wild beast with no respect for the law. The same as always, nowadays. But that's not what caught my attention. What caught my attention was the name the reporter had given me. Skin Crawler. The name fits, don't you think? Thank you for joining the Haunting Chronicles. If you were brave enough to listen all the way through, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts on tonight's haunting. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your doors locked, because monsters aren't always just in stories. Sleep tight, if you can.